All right, so Jain people, and welcome to the channel. So recently, a lot of reports have been going around about the 114 MRFA Rafale deal for the Indian Air Force. And in a sense, this is not the Rafale deal actually, but rather than a government to government tender regarding the same. So today I just wanted to go through this entire like whatever the rumors are going on in the media, and then we're going to analyze the deal, see whether it's good, whether it's bad, because apparently there's a lot of outrage going on about this on Twitter and on social media, news channels, and on YouTube as well. It's genuinely crazy. So let's get into this and look at what's actually going on. All right, so a lot of media reports have been coming regarding this. So we're just going to go through all of them one by one. And the basics of the deal is that it is supposed to be around 3.25 lakh crores. It is going to be 114 aircraft with 18 in the flyaway condition. And the rest, 96, will be made in India with up to 60% indigenous content. So if I'm not wrong, it's going to start from around 30% in the beginning, and then it will rise up to 60%. That is what I understood from reading. So it is supposed to be signed by the end of 2026 or 2027 for F4 starfighters. They're not going to be the base F4 model that the French Air Force uses. It will have India specific enhancements. So So again, after I think yesterday the Defense Acquisition Council, headed by the Defense Secretary, has already cleared the deal. So now the next step is that the Defense, uh, what am I saying? Yeah, so the Defense Acquisition Council will now give an acceptance of necessity for this, after which they will have the contracts and all decided, and then the CCS will give the approval for this, and then the contract will actually be signed. So this would take at least a year, although some people are, I have seen some reports that it is apparently going to be signed next month. Unlikely, do not believe those reports. That is just not going to happen. I do not believe that Indian administration can happen this quickly. The administrative papers can just move that quickly. That is not going to happen. So, anyways, now it has been said that it will be produced in the Dassault Reliance Aerospace Limited, in which Dassault actually acquired the majority share last month. And now it is yeah, it is a subsidiary of the French aviation major Dassault Aviation. So a lot of companies are going to be part of this, and they are going to set up the final assembly line for all the global demand, not just for India. They're going to cater to their pending order book. They have a backlog of 220 Rafales, as you can see in here. So yeah, and the is manufacturing the F4 version. India is going with certain upgrades to the Spectra EW suite, and it will be known as the F4 Star. Again, I just told the same thing. So yesterday, the Defense Acquisition Council, now at the one headed by the Defense Secretary, the Defense Procurement Board, I'm sorry. So the Defense Acquisition Council is headed by the Defense Minister. This one is headed by the Defense Secretary. So the Defense Procurement Board has actually given a go ahead to procure the 114 Rafales. I don't think this one says has moved to the defense clearing the proposal. Okay, so yeah, it has indeed saying the same. So this has happened. So now the next step would be to the Defense Acquisition Council, where you will get an acceptance of necessity, and then you will negotiate the contract, which I think is already done. If a lot of reports are already reporting the same, so then it needs the CCS approval, and then the contract will be signed. And then another report came today that the Su-57 is still on the table, which is indeed surprising. That means that indeed the Rafale deal will scrap the MRFA contract, have a government to government contract for 114 Rafale, and the Su-57 might actually still be procured as an interim fifth generation measure, which I think is not a bad choice. But if we are already spending close to 36 billion United States dollars on Rafale, I don't know how they're going to find the money for it and then also invest in the domestic programs. We're going to talk about that later in the video. So again, they've just said the same thing, and they've reported, and the proposal to buy Su-57 is still on the table. The sources on Saturday told India TV that the proposal to acquire Su-57 is still on the table. So yeah, and they have offered transfer of technology. They're not going to give it if we buy like 2 to 3 squadrons as an interim measure. That is not going to happen. Nobody gives you technology and source code for that little of an amount. But anyways, this is indeed being reported. And then I saw this report a few minutes before that the 114 Rafale deal sparks alarm in Pakistan. So let's just go through this once before we head into the analysis. Regional tensions, all countries are increasing their production. So what I think that they might order, they're saying 60 to 70 multi-role fighters, while also looking at 40 J-35. We are going to talk about this in detail in the end of the video, but if Pakistan is going to acquire 70 more J-10s and 40 more J-35s, and they already have like 100 more JF-17s on order, and then they are also trying to sustain their F-16 fleet. I do not know how they are going to do that. Either they're just going to eat up the entire Pakistan government's budget into this, or they'll do something. I mean, they do have that we'll eat grass but we'll defeat India kind of mindset. So the sources indicate that PF ordered an additional 60 to 70 J-10 fighters. All right. So indeed, this is interesting. And now, although they do claim that the J-10 had shot down a Rafale with a PL-15 missile, no wreckage was seen, no radar intercepts. They showed that I think their Air Chief Marshal came and or their DG Air Ops came and showed some weird, Urdu accent sounding video in which they claimed they shot six fighters. Then Donald Trump said they shot seven, so they started claiming seven. Then Trump started saying eight, and then they started claiming we shot eight fighters. So I do not want to get into this because you really can never trust what the Pakistanis say. So now we'll head into the analysis and let's see what actually is going on under the hood. So firstly, why we are basically scrapping the MRFA tender and why there is no more competition again. So we'll just go through all the options that were there in the MRFA tender, which was released in 2018, if I'm not wrong. So firstly, the option was for the Su-35, and Su-35 is pretty much just an evolution, the final evolution of the Su-27. And the Su-30 itself is an evolution of the Su-27 design with thrust vectoring and a twin seat design. It's basically like the F-15 existed and then the Strike Eagle F-15E came out of the F-15. Pretty much the same philosophy, just like a lot of differences in there. The Su-30s have not been upgraded, at least in India, pretty well. However, the F-15Es in the US have indeed had AESA upgrades and all that. So again, it is not a good choice considering the Super 30 upgrade is scheduled for the existing Su-30s. Then we have the F-21, which is the F-16 Viper Block 70 or the F-16 IN, whatever they call it. No benefit over Tejas Mark II. I think that's pretty much self-explanatory. If we have Tejas Mark II even after 6 to 7 years and we buy F-21s right now, it does not give any benefits. It's the same single engine fighter, similar radar, similar avionics and all that. So not really much of a difference. So then we have the FA-18 Super Hornets. The production line is closed. As far as I know, that Boeing has stopped receiving orders and they are closing the production line. So and it also comes with the American export ITAR controls, and you never know. And I don't think they'll be even happy with the S-400. Anyways, then the F-35. If I am not wrong, that Lockheed has actually replaced the F-21 with the F-35. Now, this apparently has some sort of kill switch. At least it's reported widely by the media and like said by a lot of people online. But again, you never know the United States. They probably can have something like this on their fighter. And then strict export controls. Again, ITAR regulations will apply no matter what. You know, Israel is different. Even Israel didn't get access to the mission computer, and they didn't actually get to change the radar. They, I think, just got access to the software libraries to integrate their own weapons, do some modifications. But more or less, it's the same F-35A. And then we do not have, the Indian Air Force does not have E7 or the RC-135 and American ISR support to actually exploit the potential of the F-35. So in the end, it's not going to link with the IACCS. It's not going to have the AVAX that it actually needs. It is just going to become a very expensive 4.5 gen platform with stealth. So again, just not worth it. And then Typhoon, I think that actually got selected in the MMRCA, but again, it had a very high operating cost. I'm not wrong, it costs like $65,000 per hour to operate. And then you have to deal with four different countries in the consortium. That is the UK, Germany, and then there's Spain, and I think there's Italy. Yeah. So not worth it dealing with these many countries, especially when you want to have some sovereignty. Then comes the Gripen E. Now, again, if you compare the Gripen E to the Tejas Mark II side by side, both are like exact same platform, same engine, similar kind of requirements, cheap operations and modern with a good cockpit, sensor fusion, and a pretty much versatile weapon package. Again, so that is just the same platform. No point acquiring Ripon E if you are already working on Tejas Mark II. And then MiG 35, I don't think this even should be explained. It is completely obsolete. There's not much of an upgrade path, especially with the poor RD-33 engines. And then the Su-57, which replaced the Su-35 technically in the MRFA tender. This is not out of the table, although I do not think that it will be procured in the numbers of 100 and 100 plus as the Rafale is going to be procured, because that is just going to cost almost the same as the Rafale deal. Maybe a little bit cheaper, but not exactly the same. So in the end, why the Rafale? That is because it is familiar to our pilots and it has a lot of logistical ease. You already have 2 to 3 air bases that are capable of supporting Rafale operations. It does not cost you much in infrastructure terms again. And the MRO facility for the M88 engine is also being opened in India by Safran. And it has performed well in Operation Sindoor, as I blown up the terror camps. And although now the debates do come online that it got shot down or something like that, there is no confirmation on that, so I am not going to touch that at all. I do not work with unverified information. And then the availability rate is pretty high. I think it is more than 70% usually. So that's again a good thing, like having a high availability rate means you can do more sorties, your pilots can train much more. So yeah, that is the reason why the Rafale has been chosen again. And maybe the reason is that the Indian Air Force likes French aircraft. You had the Mirage 2000s and they were obsessed with acquiring more. And then now they want the Rafale, even though both were damn good platforms for their time. Now the question comes, why not more Su-30s? The airframe differences are there. The Su-30 is a fourth generation airframe. It does not have many composites. The airframe life is not as high as the Rafale. And again, it has a higher operating cost than operating the Rafale. And then you have the spares problem with Russia. Although we do manufacture a lot of the spares in India itself, you cannot manufacture everything regarding a foreign platform. That's just not possible. So you might have some spares problems with it. And the Super 30 upgrade, it is delayed. I think it's going to come in 2032 or 33. So till then, it is like not really fit for modern air-to-air and air-to-ground combat. Although it does have a very versatile package of weapons, and once it's upgraded with the AESA radar and the 64-bit mission computer, it is going to perform really well. Like it's just like the F-15Es got upgraded to the F-15, not upgraded, but as a new aircraft came in the F-15EX. It's pretty much going to be the same kind of thing. And the engine life, the AL-31 has a poorer engine life than the M88. Although you can install AL-41s and the 177S engines, but that just cost a lot as well. That then the price of the Su-30s and the Rafales are going to be more or less similar. If not, the Su-30s are going to be more expensive. Now the question comes, why the Rafale is so expensive? So, firstly, inflation obviously is there post COVID. There has been a lot of inflation. The rates have shot up very high. And then the supply chain issues, like we've seen with the General Electric engines for the Tejas Mark 1A. The supply chain issues are indeed real. So you do have a lot of rate hikes in there. And then if we compare it to the deal of the UAE Rafale or the Turkey Typhoons or the latest, I think Philippines got the F-16 Vipers, they are also pretty much the same cost, especially if you look at the deal of the Turkey's Typhoons. That is, I think, 10 billion euros for 20 brand new aircraft and then 24 used Qatari Typhoons. So that is also very expensive. If we just see the new aircraft, that is going to cost 500 billion a million euros per aircraft. So this is actually much cheaper than that. And I don't think Turkey is getting any sort of customized version. They're just going to use what the UK and Germany use. So again, and the domestic production line needs investment. But, but I think this is where we should indeed negotiate, because Dassault should invest some sort of money in this production line themselves, because they are going to be benefiting. They have an order book of 225. They cannot clear it from the French production line in the next 10 years. And even if they do, it's not like the orders have ended. They're still taking orders. They're going to take our orders. I think Serbia was looking to expand their fleet. Ukraine has signed a letter of intent to get 100 Rafales. So, I mean, if Ukraine is going to survive till then, that's a different thing. But Yeah, and fighter platforms in general are getting expensive. So if you see any fighter platform, you see the Typhoon, you see the Rafale, you see the Gripen. Gripen is, I would say, the most cheap out of all these. You see the Su-35, the Su-57, you see the J-10. J-10 is again going to be pretty cheap because China does have a lot of, cost cutting, and the production line just outputs a lot more to just reduce the cost of the aircraft in bulk itself. And then you see the F-15EX, you see the F-35. So indeed, fighter platforms themselves are getting a lot more expensive. So yeah, that's more or less about the cost. Now, is the platform worth it? Is buying 114 Rafales worth it at 114 units for 36 billion United States dollar? Yes, at the current cost, it is indeed not the best buy that we should get. We might be able to renegotiate the cost down to 32, $33 billion if we agree on partial investment on the production line or something like that, or get less weapons per aircraft. But more or less, it is the cost of our poor planning. If you had to buy 114 Rafales today, why not sign the deal in 2016? Now, some people are going to say we didn't have the money back then. I mean, even now, you're not going to pay the entire sum to France in a year. You're probably going to have 5 to 6 years of installments. So you could have taken 10 back then. Either way, the defense budget has shot up enough that we could have afforded to pay them. And by now, all 126 would have been in service. All of them would have been operationalized. We would have had enough trained pilots to operate them, even two pilots per plane. So again, that is the cost of our poor planning and our poor decision delays. Remember, the MMRCA contract was released in 2007. And after trials and all, it was decided in 2012 that the IAF wants to procure Rafales. So indeed, that is the cost of our poor planning and decision delays. And then the domestic platforms themselves are not keeping pace with the requirements. So if you see the LCA Mark 1A contract was signed in 2021 and another order was placed, like the clearance for the order was given last year for 97 more. So now you have 180 Tejas Mark 1A on order, and the 83 were on order for the past 5 years. Have we received a single aircraft? No. If we had started receiving aircraft even in numbers of 12 to 18 per year, maybe it would have been thinkable that we should just give more orders for the Tejas Mark 1A and we should somehow make it manage with a light combat aircraft. But again, see, General Electric has supplied 5 engines in the past year to HAL. That is a low amount, but has HAL supplied one aircraft, delivered one aircraft to the IAF? The answer is no. And then the Mark II first flight itself is pretty uncertain. They have been claiming it's going to be in 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. And now they're claiming it's in 2027. The prototype will roll out in 2026. So again, HAL cannot be trusted. We cannot have our future war risk where we do not have any modern platforms capable of taking on Pakistan and China. And the platform is still pretty capable. The F4.1 standard actually competes well with the J10s and the J16. Although J20, that's a different story. We're going to talk about it next. And the domestic manufacturing itself brings the Rafale ecosystem to India. Now, you are going to be part of the global supply chain of the Rafale. Once you start manufacturing it, once you start having MRO facility in India, the other countries like UAE, they will send their Rafales to get repaired in India, not France, because that would be a longer distance, and India is just like right next door. So they would just send their Rafales to get maintained in India. The MRO facility is going to be opened here. And one more private company learns Western manufacturing discipline. I have not seen a single person talk about this online. Right now, we have I would say two companies that have dealt with Western companies, that is L&T and Tata. So they are pretty much good at manufacturing Western aviation platforms. But now, if Reliance, or let's say like if they're going to choose any other partner, one other company will learn Western manufacturing discipline, and that is huge. That company's experience can later be used in manufacturing UAVs or future fighter platforms. So indeed, that is worth it. So it's not just screwdriver giri. I know that as we have been doing screwdriver giri for the past, I mean, ever since we've gotten independent, but still, indeed, one more company will learn how to manufacture it on the levels of how the United States and France does. So yeah, now does it affect domestic programs? We do not know about this, but a lot of online reports have confirmed that they have separate funding and timelines, so they should not be affected. And the LCA Mark 1A, now again, we should not be trusting HAL, but it is supposed to be delivered beginning of March 2026, and they have claimed to deliver like three platforms at once. So that is going to be a different thing. Now we have to see that they have like 11 to 12 airframes like ready to set. Only like five of them have engines. I don't know what problems they're having with integrating weapons. Most likely with the ALM 2052 radar, it's an Israeli radar, so they have to deal with IAI. So yeah, and the Mark II rollout again, as I said, is expected to roll out in the quarter two of this year, and then the first flight is going to be happening next year's first quarter. And again, that also we should take with a pinch of salt because it's not HAL can't really be trusted. And the AMCA prototype contract is expected to be handed this year to a private consortium, and the prototype is expected to come out in quarter one of 2029, with the engine deal to be signed with Safran by Q2 to Q4 of 2026. All of this is very optimistic. Other than the engine deal, I think that will happen this year. The handing of contract and the delivering of the prototype by 2029. I am not. I'm pretty pessimistic about it. I do not think that it will come that early. But if it happens, that is going to be a good thing. I mean, we wouldn't have to import a lot more platforms later. And then the TED BF, it's still in design work. There's a lot of ambiguity about it. The naval chief has confirmed that they are indeed working on it, although there's no CCS approval for the funding yet. So I'm not sure if the design work has been done yet. But yeah, that is at least not cancelled. So the TED BF remains for the Navy, and they might even derive the ORCA out of it later. I don't know why they would do that later, but if they are buying Rafales and Tejas Mark II now, but we'll see about it later then. Now, was the Rafale deal really that urgent that we needed it? Yes. Air Force is not in a good condition. We have 29 squadrons and the sanction strength is 42.5. So the MiG-21s retired last year, October, and then the number went from 31 to 29. China has 66 squadrons, Pakistan has 26 squadrons, and if they're going to expand now with the J-35, they are going to exceed the IAF squadron numbers, which I think they might do before because France will take time to deliver, but China might end up delivering the J-10s much quicker to Pakistan than we would have the Rafales from France. And then the Tejas Mark 1A number, we have 180 on order. Once you add the six additional squadrons of the Rafale, that would be 35 squadrons in total, and then the Mark 1A would bring it up to 45 squadrons. That will like match the retirement of the MiG 21 and MiG 23 platforms. And then the Tejas Mark 2 is supposed to replace around 12 existing squadrons of the Mirage 2000, the Jaguar, and the MiG 29 UPG. And they might induct more squadrons once they're sanctioned and needed. And the super upgrade for the Su-30, as I said again, 7 to 8 years minimum away from operationalization. So, yes, this platform was indeed needed. It will fill our critical medium term needs very much. The short term needs are going to be satisfied by the Tejas Mark 1A if it is delivered on time. And the Rafale will fulfill the medium term needs with the Tejas Mark 2 and the AMCF fulfilling the long term needs. And then Su-57, again, I know there's a lot of debate going about this. We should have bought 140 Su-57s. We would have gotten technology. Again, nobody's going to give you full technology, full source code. I think this should be very clear. People online are claiming that we would get full technology and all that. Not going to happen. Do not believe Russia's promises. They have also backtracked on their promises a lot of times. And the F-35, Lockheed has been pushing it a lot. Even the Pentagon has agreed to integrate the IAF into the F-35 program. But as far as media reports go, the F-35 has been rejected. So that is not going to happen. And the PF is going to expand the G10 fleet if the Rafale deal is clear. We just saw that in the news. Pakistan is already panicking about it. Online, they are claiming, oh, we'll shoot down all 114. That is complete nonsense. So that is Pakistanis in their delusion. So we're not going to talk about that. And then the PLA has 2,000 fighters. Yes, not all of them are on the Indian front, but they at least have 800 to 900 fighters on this front. So yes, we do need the Rafale. Although they are not adequate to counter the J-20, but they are adequate enough to counter the J-16s and the J-11s. Now, Meteor is unavailable in our inventory, is going around online a lot. No comment. I am not going to comment on this. There have been RTIs filed with the Indian Air Force and they have rejected it, citing national security. So there must be a reason why they are not telling you, but it has not been used in Operation Sindoor. Nobody has seen a Meteor on an IAF Rafale. Even when the president of India visited the Ambala Air Force Station to take a ride on the Rafale, there the missiles that were displayed did not include Meteor. But as per a lot of international reports, I think SIPRI and all reported about it, IAF does have a Meteor stockpile. So we are just going to go by that, that Meteors do exist in the inventory. Why they were not used in Sindoor, I do not have any clue. Now is the J20 better than the Rafale? Yes, it is indeed better. Anybody saying that the Rafale will counter the J20 is purely coping. If had this been 2018, yes, the Rafale would have been better than the J20. Back then, it was not mature. It was using the AL-31 engines, but now they're using the WS-15 engines. They had the J20A and J20B, and even the J20S versions come out with much more refined materials. And I think they had a lot of internal changes in there. So, although Rafale will not counter J20, it is indeed better than any current Indian platform to counter the J20. And in a networked formation with the Rafales, the Su-30s, the Tejas, and we are not going to include the older platforms, but when they work in a network formation, it would indeed pose a threat to the J20, although not in a decisive way. It would not even match it, but it would come close to countering the J20. And the Rafale M now provides actual combat functionality in the aircraft carriers other than symbolic show of force. Right now, let's be honest, the MiG 29K is not a good platform in any manner. I think we operate the oldest aircraft carrier fighter in the world. Some countries do operate the Harrier as well, but otherwise, the Rafale M is pretty much the MiG 29K is pretty much a done deal. The radars don't work as per leaked reports, and the airframe also has a lot of problems. So the Rafale M will provide a lot of benefits over the MiG 29Ks. All right, so now the myths come. Did the Rafale got shot down by J-10? No concrete evidence was shown. No radar signatures were shown by the Pakistan Air Force. No wreckage was shown. No concrete evidence. If people still believe after that, if Indians themselves believe after that that the Rafale was shot down, honestly cannot do anything about it. At that point, you have fallen prey to enemy propaganda. And then the unbiased Western reports, which cite no concrete sources, no actual footage. They say French intelligence claimed it, Dassault Aviation claimed it, a Pentagon official claimed it. Does not mean anything without proof. These Reuters, BBC, Telegraph, Bloomberg, CNN, Al Jazeera, and all these Turkish media, even Russian media itself was spreading propaganda against Rafale. They are known to show India in a bad light. You go on BBC any day and tell me one positive thing you have seen about India. Other than the ISRO launches, I think, like the Chandrayaan 3 and all that, I have never seen anything positive regarding India in Western media. And then large propaganda campaigns were run by China and Pakistan to harm Rafales and the Indian Air Force's image. Even Russia ran some campaigns to promote the Su-57 as against the Rafale, although that kind of failed. If the IAF is still buying 114 Rafale, I think the indication where it would have been that the government is hiding losses and they do not trust the Rafale would have been they would have gone with the Su-57 or the F-35 or any other platform directly. But they are buying 114 Rafales. They're locking themselves in a 30-year, 40-year ecosystem. That completely means that there was no Rafale shot down. If there was one or two lost, they were not due to the Rafale itself being a bad platform. It could have been tactics, it could have been surface to air missiles locked in, or it could have just been technical glitches. Again, we do not talk about our own losses. Just look how Pakistan has just completely wiped off anything about their own losses by just constantly spreading the we shot Rafale propaganda everywhere. So they're just crying now because they cannot afford to modernize to the pace of the Indian Air Force anymore post the S-400, the Rafale, now the Tejas Mark II, the Su-57. And even more J-35s and more J-10s will be given on a soft loan by China because they cannot afford. Just, I think the entire Pakistan army budget is like $10 billion. How many are they going to buy? J-10s are not that cheap as well. The J-35 is not cheap. They're going to have to spend 20 to $25 billion on more J-10s as well. So, and they cannot afford to maintain it. Let's say that China tomorrow gives them the J10s on a soft loan or just gives them for free. How will they maintain it? How will they fly them? How will they uh, ensure logistics? Will the PAF be able to maintain a sortie rate like IAF during the scenario of a war? More than 2 days? Trust me, they cannot. You can have a blockade on the airports. Where are they going to get fuel? That ends the conversation completely. It is just total nonsense that the PAF has any sort of strategic advantage over the IAF. They might get the J-35A. They would not have anything more than slight tactical advantages. They might be able to breach in the air defense system, maybe destroy a battery or something. Other than that, they might be able to shoot like 8 to 10 fighters. What more can they do? Missile stockpiles are going to run out. It does not mean that you have fired a missile, so all of them are just going to completely lock in and blow up the fighters in the air. No, we have seen multiple PL-15 wreckages in India itself. So even probably in Sindoor, they fired like 20 missiles at once, and maybe then one of them hits. That is not a good cost to benefit ratio. And then some of the PEF fanboys online are dreaming, oh, we're gonna buy F-16 Vipers, we're gonna get the Viper upgrade, or we're gonna buy F-15 EX. I've even seen some dumb comments that the US will include them in the F-35 program while they are buying J-35s. Complete nonsense. Ignore all this X rage bait. I do not even browse X anymore because it's complete rage bait. It's complete propaganda. It's just going to eat your mind. Just ignore it. That's complete brain rot. And the Pakistan air defense itself is extremely poor. Once the HQ-9 batteries and the radars were completely destroyed on ground, their runways were not able to survive Indian missiles. And their economy cannot sustain anything more than symbolic purchases anymore. Maybe they can buy like 100 more GF-17s. They might be able to sustain that because they manufacture the platform in Pakistan. And even then, they depend on Russia for engines, China for radars, avionics, everything. So this is just complete nonsense. Do not fall into the Pakistani propaganda. At best, if I ever feel like my mood is off, I need to laugh, I just open Twitter and look at Pakistani propaganda. That makes me laugh. So, anyway, lastly, I would like to conclude this by telling some important things. Right now, everything is pure speculation. All the prices, all the units discussed, the configuration has been reported by one ANI post and which got spread completely in the media after that. And even after, if the deal, it is going to happen, no doubt. It may get signed this year or next year. It will get signed. That is imminent. Rafales are coming to India, but we will never know the complete details even after contract is signed. This is not the United States. You cannot be transparent about everything because our enemies will know everything. You gotta let them spend intelligence resources on finding out. So we will never find out. As an ordinary person, I will never get to know what's actually in the contract. We would just know that we have procured X units more of Rafale, and that's about it. That we have spent this much money on it. That's about it. And then do not think you know better than the Air Force. Oh, we should have bought more Su-30s. We should have bought more Tejas. We should have bought Su-57s. We should have bought F-35s. We should have bought Typhoons, or we shouldn't have bought anything, just buy more air defense. You do not know better than the Air Force. I do not know better than the Air Force. Even the top tier analysts do not know better than the Air Force. They know their requirements. I think that is where we should end it. We should not be discussing about it anymore. The deal is imminent. These are all the things that are supposed to be discussed publicly. And lastly, do not fall into Pakistani propaganda. They're going to claim, oh, let them buy 114 more. We'll shoot down 114 more. Nonsense. Nonsense. Never going to happen. They might be able to shoot in the most optimistic scenario, 4 to 5 down, not more than that. They can get all the J-35s they want. The J-35 isn't an invincible platform. They can get 40 of them, even with a, let's assume, a 60% availability rate. They're going to fly 24 of them at once. And however many missiles are they going to carry? They have like 4 internal base. All four, you cannot load it up with PL-15s. You need some IR missiles on there for short range combat. They're going to fire the 48 missiles in 24 J-35s. At max, 3 to 4 will hit the target in itself. Electronic warfare exists, AVAX guiding exists, spoofing exists. So this is just complete nonsense. Do not get into the Pakistani propaganda. Now, I would probably like to make another video on this. But I would just like to quickly discuss the future of the Indian Air Force versus the Pakistan Air Force. So Tejas Mark 1A is undoubtedly superior to the JF-17 in everything except its range. The ELM 2052 radar is better than the KLJ-7A radar. The EW libraries are much more vast because unlike Pakistan, Israel has a lot of combat experience in air warfare. So they feed their EW libraries accordingly. And again, no more difference. The engine is like 5 times better. The F404 engine is much better than the RD-93. And in fact, we actually manufacture the RD-33 in India. HAL manufactures it for the MiG-29, if I'm not wrong. Then the Tejas Mark II, they probably won't even use it against the Pakistan Air Force. The Mark 1A, the Su-30s, and a few Rafales would probably sort out the PAF in the next 10 years. And if they get fifth gen platforms, then one or two squadrons of AMCA or the Su-57 will take care of the J-35. The Mark II is intended to be fielded against the large Chinese J-10 fleet. The Su-57 or F-35, if either of these are procured, even the F-35, without the E7s and without the American ISR support, it will raise any tactical advantages the PAF has today or might have. And the AMCA will again just flip the switch forever on PAF. They cannot compete however many imports they do. They cannot compete once we build everything at home, the radars, the engines, the entire aircraft itself, the avionics, the ejection seats. They cannot do anything about it. We'll have the industrial superiority, and industrial superiority is what wins wars, not symbolic platforms, whoever can produce them more at scale. And if we will also come to parity with China, we are not going to discuss about that, but the PLA will indeed induct sixth generation fighters, so it's not going to remain for long. And then the Khan debate. Turkey cannot give you too many cons. They are going to say, "Oh, we'll set up a domestic production line." Go ahead. It's going to take 3 to 4 years to set it up. The Khan would not itself be ready before 2035. And then again, can you trust a country that is making a fifth generation platform for the first time? They have never made a single fighter ever. Turkey does not have any history. We have the history of the HF-24, the Tejas Mark 1, the Tejas Mark 2, the AMCA, the TED BF design. We have experience. Even South Korea, the KF-21, they did not jump straight to a fifth gen fighter. They had the T-50 made first, then they made the Block 1 KF-21, and now they're working on the Block 2, Block 3. You cannot directly jump to a fifth generation fighter and expect it to be as good as the F-35, the J-20, the Su-57, the F-22. Cannot happen. So whoever, like all these park analysts, quote unquote, I don't think they even read physics or they even read logistics. They read economics. Turkey will not give you any meaningful numbers of Khan before they induct at least 80 to 90 themselves. So forget about Khan till at least 2040. So that was all of it. That is all of it I wanted to discuss. Let me know if you guys have any different opinions down in the comment sections. So yeah, that was it. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you all in the next video. Take care and Jai Hind.